All right, welcome back to another Arise with Anita podcast episode. I am so excited for this one because I feel like it's very timely for where I am in my life, and I feel like just from the messages and the conversations I've been having over the last couple of weeks, it's been very timely and very needed. So today what we're going to be talking about is that version of yourself that you used to chase. The one who has it all figured out, the one who looks unshakable, she sounds confident, she moves like she knows who she is. I'm sure if we all think about it, we have someone that we've found online that represents that. So you look at their highlighted affirmations or what their lifestyle looks like, and you try to become her because you're inspired by that version of whoever that might be for you. And let's be honest, you're inspired because whatever is reflected is most of the time something we already have within ourselves that we are trying to bring out and emulate. So let me tell you the truth. The version of you that you're chasing, she's just a future echo of you. You already know your full potential. You already know what's already inside of you. And so she's not really a fantasy, but she's rather your reflection. And it's time that we have to start acting like that version. There comes a point I found in every, I'm going to say woman's journey, but I feel like there's a lot of guys who probably relate to this too, the more I interact with them, that goes and hits this realization of, I'm no longer who I was, but yet I'm not living fully like the embodied version of who I am. There's this in-between that's brutal because your outer world is still reflecting old patterns and old habits. The people don't necessarily see you in the light that you would like them to perceive you as. And there's standards that you've settled for, which I'll be honest, this is one point I'm still working on currently, is what standards do I need to raise? But your inner world is starting to scream, I'm changing, I've changed, I'm different. I am her right now, which I always hit this point in the podcast because I'm so passionate and I really can't wait to bring out this course, but her, heal, embody, rise. So today we're actually mostly focusing on this embodied version of ourselves, the identity gap, so to speak. And that's where most of us actually turn back, right? Because the truth is, becoming the standard means outgrowing your excuses. I'm going to run this one back. Becoming the standard means outgrowing your excuses. And as someone who's been guilty of this said thing, of I don't have enough time, I am not ready yet, let me just delay it a little more for when I have more skills, more tools, more techniques, more strategy. It all came down to excuses. So it means that we have to get to this point where we start breaking up with our own bullshit. It means letting go of being relatable, staying humble potentially, and we want to start stepping into what feels unforgettable in our own essence, in our own alignment. And let's be honest, there is a grief in growing because you're not just evolving, there's a part of you that's also bearing the version of you who needed to be small to feel safe. I think the most interesting part of the last 12 weeks for me is how much of an identity death and rebirth I've had to deal with. And while I haven't fully touched on this, and I will, there was a lot of what I thought I needed to feel safe and secure and for my world to not feel like it was falling apart. That was just messy. And I think that part doesn't really get talked about a lot. And the grief isn't clean. It is messy. There's sacredness in even grieving an old identity, and it feels disorienting because you're not sure of, can I hold this version of myself that I'm building? And if we're being honest, most women will do anything to avoid it. But instead of stepping into that version of us, the her version, we start to second guess, we sabotage, we start to doubt, and you start to stay digestible, palatable, predictable. All aspects of you that are playing smaller because it feels safer. And here's what I found. Becoming the her version of us requires more than just the mindset. It requires us to start to recalibrate on this identity. It starts to require us to really look at the aspect of ourselves where are we connecting with our true essence. I think I touched on this on last week's episode because I got hit about 4 different positions the week prior of, are you connected with your true identity? Are you actually coming home to your own essence? And is that the version of yourself you're stepping out into the world as, or are you working out wearing a mask, walking out wearing a mask? Because with this identity recalibration, I'm all about bringing the mindset into the somatic practices, right? Combining your body, seeing what feels disoriented so that you're able to start to feel safe. And if you don't at least feel safe, you can acknowledge where you're feeling unsafe. But you also have to be willing to feel unsafe for a moment or uncomfortable to get to that version of you that's more aligned. So here's the flip. You don't need another example of what this looks like, because I'm sure we've all had points where you are the example. You are the standards, and you are the energy that people feel before you even start to speak. If you can start to really come from a conscious point of, what is it that I really want to do? And what is it that I really am here to give? It's a different energy. You become the version of yourself that people look at and they go, damn, if she can do it, so can I. Because as long as you're not outsourcing your power and you stop waiting for permission, you start to live your life like your worth is already inherent rather than needing to be earned, you realize the her version of you is not found. She's chosen in the day-to-day. And today I dare you to choose her. So what does embodiment on a day-to-day basis look like? I'm in this phase right now. So real talk, these are actual personal tips that I'm giving you. But what it looks like for me, connecting consciously, whether that is with my creator or God, as I call it, connecting with those around me, making a conscious effort to speak with people who actually hold me to a higher standard or connect on a deeper level than just the surface. It looks like taking action, even if it's scary or what I would consider too bold, something I'm not ready for yet. And the beautiful part, as I've noticed, when I take these bolder actions, when I start to show up and say, hey, I don't necessarily know if this in this moment is the action I need to be taking, or if I'm not ready for it, but I'm taking it anyways. It's shifted my perspective with rejection. So I have more of a it's not a now perspective rather than a no. And there's a beauty in when you start to take these bold actions, because what I've found is when you're ready, the world starts to catch you. And what I mean by when you're ready is when you actually just start to take the action. Not from a place of I'm waiting to be ready. It's just you start taking that action. And what I found is action provides clarity. This is a whole nother topic in itself. But my point is, the embodiment looks like me really mapping out what the next 6 month, 1 year version of me, 5-year version of me looks like. How is she leading her life? How is she walking? What decisions does she make? What questions does she dare to ask? Not only of herself, but of others. And in that embodiment, right, how can I collapse time? And if I just walk with certainty that it'll all work out, even if it feels scary in the moment, what can go right? I think so long I used to have this thought process of everything that could go wrong. But when you start to look at it from the lens of what can go right if I just put myself out there, or what can go right if I really look at the version of me that I know I am in my essence, how does she operate? I think a big part of anything that comes to do with identity is when we identify with something, we are giving it power. Whether that's our habits, whether that is our even thought processes, we give it the power because we are, I am, whatever, right? Anything you put after I am, you give power to. And this is something I haven't really talked about before on here, at least not in season 2, I don't think. But I used to be someone who identified as shy. I am shy. And that came a little bit from past lessons and a little bit of how I used to be introduced. And when I was under this I am shy energy, I was being and acting in that I am shy. But if I flip the script to I am open to meeting all the right people and I am open to connecting with heart, there's a different energy. And while I'm not necessarily always the most open to being everywhere and everything, I find that the energy has shifted enough for me to openly take on a room. And it comes even as simple as noticing how my tone of voice speaks and communicates when I'm in a room like that. So just little perspective shifts. Lastly, in terms of embodiment, when I'm looking at this next version of myself, or the version that I am, because there is no timeline, I look at if in this moment my life looked 100% like that version, what decisions would she be making right now? What friendships would she be bringing in? What relationships would she maybe let go of? What thought patterns would she be letting go of? People talk often about affirmations, but I think it's also very important to do an audit on your regular thoughts, because while we have, I think the numbers are between 60 and 90,000 thoughts a day, a majority of our thoughts and our emotions really come down to probably the same 10 to 15, if that. And emotions, it's even less. Most people operate in maybe half a dozen to a dozen emotions regularly get thought of it. And that's a whole nother tangent on itself. But my point being, identifying those predominant thoughts that are constantly coming up. And do they match that version of you that you're calling in? And so it's a little bit of really catching and foreshadowing. But here's one thing I fully believe. You wouldn't be called to grow in any sense of the capacity if that version of you wasn't already inside of you. There was a speaker a couple of years ago I met, and I remember looking at her and being like, oh my God, I love your energy, and you do so amazing, and I'm like mind blown by your energy and the way you act and the way you're able to communicate. And there was this very beautiful, humbling moment where she looked at me and she was like, if you are drawn to my energy, it's because you have something similar in you that you have not tapped into. And I was like, girl, you're just being a little humble right here. But I realized she was absolutely, completely right. There are aspects of my personality that are outgoing and like this social butterfly, if I let her out, that were not being tapped into. But I was drawn to that energy. So I think what I'm going to leave you with is going back to that version of what you look at while you're on your social profiles. Who it is that inspires you. I'm not talking about who you compare yourself to. I'm talking about people who give you a genuine spark of inspiration. Who give you this, wow, I like something about the way she lives her life, or I like something about the way she carries herself, she communicates, or how she is in a podcast, or insert whatever version of the content you're watching is, right? And I dare you to ask, what is it about this person that I actually admire that might already be inside of me that I'm not acknowledging? So I'm going to end off here. Here is your challenge for this week. Ready for it? Do something that terrifies you. The message you've been sitting on to text, send it. If there's maybe a boundary that you've been avoiding setting, might be time to have a conversation. The standard that you're lowering, but you know you should be having the conversation or addressing somehow, or putting a silent boundary in. Raise that standard. Here's the thing. The world doesn't need another watered down version of you. We need to all be in our most undiluted, authentic, unfiltered, and unstoppable selves. Because your reign doesn't start with someday. It starts when you finally own up to, I am the standard. I am the embodiment. I have everything I need within me now. So if you like this episode, please review, like, share, subscribe, and let me know, what was your greatest takeaways? Are you in the in-between phase? I would love to support you. Message me on Instagram or Facebook, and I'd love to keep the conversation going.